Let's do
Welcome
it.
back. It's another edition of Rick Corey Sports Special. It's Monday. That means it's Loren Montgomery, the head football coach at Bixby. After a bye week, we talked last week about what you would do with the week. Now that you've had that week and it's over, how do you feel it went?
Yeah, I think it went really well. Our guys practiced well. We came out, we kind of got a head start on Choctaw, got to clean a few things up. Did some mimic the game on Friday to hopefully keep some of our game shape and took the weekend off. So hoping our guys come back refreshed today, ready to get it on.
So a little weekend off. Does that mean you got a chance to watch the Presleys?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, went down there and watched the TU game. Several of the coaches from our staff, and I know several of our players did as well. So it was great getting to go down and see a bunch of our former players.
Yeah.
If you look at Oklahoma State, of course they've got Brennan Presley, and then Tulsa has Ethan Hall, Braylon Presley, Brody Duffel. So had a lot of guys out on the field running around.
That's outstanding. There almost were as many people on the sidelines as there were on the field. So if you were down there, good luck because it was crazy down there. All right. So during your week, you said you started working a little bit of Choctaw. The difficult thing with someone like that is we call these trap games. I don't know what you guys call them, but it just means, hey, look, we're on paper better than they are, but that doesn't mean they can't beat us on any given night. How do you approach that?
Well, I think our kids understand what a formidable opponent Choctaw is. They've had a tremendous amount of success. We've played them in really close contests and state championship games in the past that many of these guys remember. They certainly understand when you put the game tape in what a good group or what a good team they are. They lost last week in a back and forth shootout to Gardner Edgerton, the 6A state champ in Kansas last year that runs a flex bone and a lot of crazy stuff. So they've got a very talented quarterback. Got a couple of skill guys that are really good. Defensively, they're aggressive. Their defense coordinators, our former defensive line coach. And I don't know that there's anybody in our locker room that would overlook or be arrogant about playing a team that's as good as Choctaw.
But there are times, coaches run into this. You guys have seemed to have done a really good job of overcoming it. Is that what you would call part of the culture?
Well, I hope so. We're still a really young team. We don't know what our identity is, and so hopefully our guys understand that winning football games is tough, and certainly we showed that week zero when we went out and got our tails beat. It's not easy, and so you have to do all the little things right. You have to be tough. You have to execute at a high level, and you got to maintain focus through 4 quarters. And so we're growing. We're a young team, and so hopefully our guys are starting to understand that, and hopefully we can go out and demonstrate that Friday.
Everybody talks about that, identity early in the season. Who are you, whether you're senior laden or that kind of thing. But because of what you guys have built and what really in big schools and even smaller schools are trying to do is start those programs in that the first time that kids put on pads and even before that, so they know the terminology and the culture. But that culture word gets thrown around a lot. It seems to mean something there in Bixby as far as work and effort and not that it doesn't everywhere else, but the consistent numbers you guys have had. So, what I'm trying to get to in a long, long question is does personality of team, which does change a little every year, help though by getting set more by what your culture is and they know that coming in?
I think so. And then hopefully, you can lean on some of those former leaders that you've had. At some point, I think when you develop a program or take over a program, you've got to have a couple of guys, that are going to do it right. And you can point to the rest of your team and say, that's what it's supposed to look like. And some of the guys, that have done it along the way here, I think of TJ Eckert, I think of Chandler Miller, who has more starts than anybody in the history of the University of Tulsa. And then you can go on, for instance, Jack Puckett, Brennan Presley, guys that have shown our team, and we can point to those guys. And there were several of those guys last year, and then I think we have a few of those guys this year that are veterans, like Cooper Parker, like Cord Nolan, that we can point to and say, "Hey guys, this is what it's supposed to look like. These guys drive our culture." So it is thrown around a lot, and it's hard to quantify, but you can definitely see it on the practice field, in the meeting rooms, and the way guys handle themselves. And so hopefully that's an area where this group continues to grow and draw from the leadership of our past guys.
You said, you're trying to figure out who exactly this team is. You're starting to get a feeling.
Yeah, we look at that not only as far as the filming, but we also look at the data. What does the data say about what are we good at? What plays are efficient for us? What plays are explosive? What players? And so we're trying to look not only at our gut feelings, we're trying to look at what the data says, on the weekends when we break down and evaluate ourselves.
That's something that coaches used to do a lot of during bye weeks. Now they do a lot of it all the time. You're doing self scout at the same time. As you do those self scouts, how often are you finding something that's instantly something you go out and say, hey, look, we've got to adjust this?
It's funny. A lot of times, what you think, may or may not be true. And a lot of times, like you'll be like, man, this particular run scheme, I feel like is our best run scheme. We're better at it than anything else. And then when you actually put the numbers as far as efficiency, and for instance, like we define efficiency by 4 yards on first down, half the distance on second down, or did you convert on third and fourth down? Maybe it is or maybe it isn't. And so I think over the years, like since I've been coaching, this is my 25th year coaching, the technology has allowed us to maybe get away from just gut feelings and crunch the data so much better because we have digital access to the film and computers. We're not using VHS tapes and a notepad. So I think we get more real time data on what is effective and what isn't.
Was that hard? And is it still hard sometimes when you just have this feeling that, hey, I know this is going to work here, yet the numbers tell you maybe not? How hard is it? Or do you still occasionally go, nah, I still want to do that?
Well, I think there's value, and then sometimes data can be misleading. And so you have to look at your data sources and where they come from. Is it maybe the numbers are big because of a particular opponent you've played, or maybe they're not as good because of, the second half you have backups in, or maybe just simply an opponent was so good and beat your tail, sort of like I referred to earlier, where nothing's particularly great. And so, but I think there is value and there still is kind of an art, as opposed to just the science. For instance, I feel like Coach Snyder, our offense coordinator, he's got a knack for knowing when to dial up certain plays and what times to do that. As Rodney Flowers, our defense coordinator, when's a great time to pressure and when's not. And so it's a combination of all that, the art and the science of play calling.
Yeah, I think it would be really difficult to do. At this point in the season, is your team about where you thought you would be?
Yeah, it's hard to say. We're with our bye week being last week, we've only got 2 weeks under our belt, so we're still playing our non-district matchups. Typically by this time, the last couple of years, we've had 3 games under our belt and are taking the bye week this week. So it's a little bit different. We need a little bit better sample size, and I think Friday will tell that because we do have such a good opponent in Choctaw.
When I asked this of coaches because I'm always fascinated by road trips. I know when you're talking about road trips in Oklahoma high school football, generally a couple hours are under, even though that's a long time for a kid on a bus. Everybody has different rules. Do you have rules for road trips? What do you do? Do you have things you have to do, or kids kind of can do what they want?
Well, no, we assign the buses. We follow an itinerary right down to the minute, as far as um, meetings before we leave, lunch before we leave, meetings when we get there, who tapes first, what order the guys tape in, when we go out on the field. And so we are creatures of habit as coaches and players. And so we try to control all those variables right down to, all you guys are going to get a Gatorade on before you get on the bus, so we can make sure when we get off we're hydrated, ready to go, and some of those things. So I feel like the more we can be regimented and stick to a strict itinerary, the more we control those variables and make it easy on our players to focus on playing football and being prepared when we get off the bus in Choctaw.
Yeah, there's something about that. There's no question about that. Well, I know it was a bye week, but that doesn't mean no work. So, hey, good luck this week. We'll see you after the Choctaw game next week.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.